This is Join Us in France, Episode 2. Hello, I'm Annie.
And I'm Elyse. And we welcome you to the Join Us in France podcast, the show where we share the best of France.
Elyse is a professional tour guide and art historian, and this is the podcast where we help you prepare your trip to France and share with you everything you need to know to have a great time in France. On today's show, we're going to be talking about the neighborhood Île de la Cité and all the amazing things you can visit there. On joinusinfrance.com, you will find our show notes, and we hope you'll also visit and say hello. We will have some questions for you there. And now, a little music to get us in the mood, and then we'll jump right into it.
We would talk about Île de la Cité. Is this very small little island, dead center in the middle of the Seine River, and it's the river, of course, that cuts the city of Paris in half. And Île de la Cité is very famous because it has two of the most important monuments of Paris, and also because it is literally the place where the city began. So I thought that it would be fun if we start with Île de la Cité.
That sounds good. And why do you start your visits there?
Well, I didn't at first, but I have gotten to the point where I think it's a really great introduction to Paris and to the history of Paris, especially if people have several days to do their visit to the city, of course, because we're all going to take a little bit of time there. But one of the things about Île de la Cité is that it really is a place where the city began. Literally, it was where the first settlers were. It's where the Romans came in 50 BC to establish what became the city of Paris. It's a place from which you can get a great view of a good part of the city. You can see up and down the Seine River, and you can see on the right bank and on the left bank, that is the two sides of the city on the other sides of the islands, and you get a really good sense of how the city developed there. Not only that, but you can walk around and you get great views all over. So besides the historical monuments, it's a really great place to visit.
Very good. And so we will do a specific podcast about the Cathedral of Notre Dame, which is right there on the Île de la Cité, and it's absolutely a must-see, in my opinion. And we will also do another podcast about the other must-see in Paris, and that is the Sainte-Chapelle.
Right.
So they're both on Île de la Cité.
They're both on Île de la Cité. So maybe I'll just mention the names of a few of the things that are on the island. You have basically 4 visitable monuments. So you have, of course, the biggest, most famous, and that is the Cathedral of Notre Dame. Famous not only in general for the history of architecture, but we have the hunchback of Notre Dame and all of that. So Les Miserables, everybody knows about Notre Dame Cathedral.
Yes.
There's also the wonderful Sainte-Chapelle, which is a private royal chapel that is filled with some absolutely magnificent stained glass. And as you said, we'll do a special podcast about those 2 monuments because they're so important.
And so much to say about those.
And so much to say about and see. And besides that, there are 2 other things you can actually visit on Île de la Cité. And one of them is an archaeological crypt that is actually underground. You get into it through access on the esplanade in front of the Cathedral of Notre Dame. And it's basically something that's been developed more recently where they are showing the vestiges of antique, ancient Paris that have been dug up. There's more and more archaeological work being done in the recent past. They have models of the city through the ages so you can see how it grew and developed. It's kind of fun, especially if you're interested in the ancient past and archaeology and you want to see some of the materials that were used that they now have on display there. And then the other monument that is good to see if you already have seen other things, and that is the Conciergerie, which is next to the Sainte-Chapelle, and which is in fact a monument to the history of France, but was the first huge palace of the kings in the early medieval times. It's huge. And it's got these wonderful pointy steepled towers that are very reminiscent of the towers you see in Disneyland drawings and cartoons. But it's also a place where you learn a lot about the history of Paris and the history of the kings. And it's very significant in the recent past because it's where the last king and queen of France before the revolution were held as prisoners. And so there's a whole part of the inside of the Conciergerie that is devoted to the history of the French Revolution, which is a major event in the history and in the mind still of French people. So altogether, we have 4 monuments on the island. Besides the 4 monuments, you have 2 parks that you can actually go and visit. And you have a flower market that is open 6 days a week from 8 in the morning till 7 o'clock at night. And it's known for being a wonderful place to get potted plants and cut flowers. And people come from all over the city to go there.
So tell me, how easy or difficult is this visit?
Well, if you're just going to walk around the island, it's perfectly easy because it's flat. There is no problem. There are no steps. If you go into the church, it's relatively easy as well. If you go into Notre Dame, the cathedral, unless you want to climb the tower. The tower is a separate entrance, not inside the cathedral. You have to actually stand online and pay to get in. And it's for the hardy and those with good legs because it's 380 steps up to the top. But if you want to see where the hunchback of Notre Dame lived and where he rang the bells, that's where you have to go. It also gives you one of the greatest views of the city of Paris you could possibly imagine. But that, of course, is really for those people who can make 380 steps without any trouble. Also,
and they're probably narrow steps too.
They're narrow steps. It's a medieval staircase. Yeah. It's one of the things that's interesting. I'm glad you mentioned that because this will come up again and again. But just as a quick reminder, if you're in a medieval building, very often the staircases are quite narrow. So you have to think about whether or not you're claustrophobic, because once you start going up one of these corkscrew staircases, you have to go all the way up to the top and use another staircase to go down usually. So you can't just go, oops, I think I made a mistake, and turn around halfway up.
I enjoy taking photographs. Are there places in particular where you should go on Ile de la Cité to take photos?
I would say the 2 points, the 2 end points of the island, and also on the little footbridge that is right next to the entrance to Notre Dame. There are actually 3 bridges on each side of the island connecting to either the left bank or the right bank of Paris, and 2 of those bridges are footbridges. There are no cars. So if you stand on them with a camera, you have an opportunity to take lots of photos of the old part of the city, of boats. This is not high up. Of course, if you want to get a photo from high up, the best thing is to go to the top of the tower, or you can actually take it from the balcony of the Sainte-Chapelle. But pretty much anywhere, you have a nice view of what would be called the classical view of the center of Paris. So it's a good place to take photos.
So let me stop you for just a second so you can tell me how to find the bathroom you were mentioning earlier.
Okay. Remember I said there are 2 parks on the island. One is a lovely, fairly large, flowery park that is behind the Cathedral of Notre Dame. So it's the back end, or if you want, the eastern side of the Ile de la Cité. If you circle around the back of the cathedral and go into the park, you have to go through walled gates. I mean, it's not an open park without any kind of a gate. Inside, on the left side, there are public free toilets that are very clean and accessible to all. And they're open as long as the park is open, which is until sundown every day.
Okay, very good.
Now, there's another little park on the island. It's at the front tip, or the western end. It's shaped in a triangular shape. It's just like a prow of a ship. And it's known in Paris to be a place where young high school students go to study and, of course, sit there with their dates sometimes and watch the boats go back and forth on the Seine. And that little square is called Le Vert Galant, which means the gallant green square. And it was named that by a king, the king who actually made this little island into a fashionable place. And that was a king named Henry IV, who was a ladies' man.
Ah.
And which, of course, means that in French, the word galant, which has to do with, of course, seducing ladies. And he apparently had a house there that he used whenever he wanted to bring somebody. So it became the square that was called the Galant Square.
Oh, I see. Very good. And if you're on Ile de la Cité at mealtime, you're hungry, where would you go eat? What would you suggest?
What I would suggest is there are several café brasseries, both right next to Notre Dame and right across from the Sainte-Chapelle. Now, a café brasserie is basically a large kind of restaurant that is open all day long and serves food from early in the morning until late at night. And you can get anything you want, from just a coffee to a warm meal. Most of the time, people tend to want to have either a salad or steak frite, which is, of course, the famous simple dish that people eat a lot in France, or croque monsieur, croque madame, which is a very lovely French version of a grilled cheese sandwich with or without ham, or with or without ham and an egg. And you can also get sandwiches or crepes, which of course are these very thin, very good kinds of pancakes that the French make. And those you can actually take out with you. And then you could either sit in the park, or there are some benches in front of the cathedral. So if you don't want to have to sit down and have service, you can do that. They're all pretty much the same price. It's a little bit pricey, but not a whole lot considering how touristy it is. So it's up to you. There are lots of people who eat there. One of the good things about it is that service is very quick. They have so many people that they don't care about you lingering there, and they are very quick to come to your table, take your order, and serve you, which is good to know, because in other parts of the city, at other times, you might have a very slow service in the restaurant. And it's good, too, if you are traveling with children, to know that you can get the crepes or a sandwich and drinks and then go and sit in the park, which sometimes is easier for them. There's one more thing I'd really like to say, and that is there are lots of bridges on the island, and it's kind of fun to walk around, because from Ile de la Cité, you can go on a very beautiful little footbridge that takes you to the other island that is in the middle of the river, and that island is called Ile Saint-Louis, named after the king, who was St. Louis, the king. And it's a very posh little part of Paris, lovely little houses, all of them designed and built at the same time in the 1600s. It's still a very, very fancy part of the city, very, very small, with some little narrow streets that have some lovely little shops. Talk about boutiques that you might want to go into on another kind of a shopping outing. That you can do there. And it's a great place to go. If you don't have something specific you want to see after doing everything on Ile de la Cité, it's great to wander over there. And there's this very famous ice cream place called Bertillon. The family Bertillon started it. And everybody in Paris knows about Bertillon ice cream. So you can go there and get that. And you can also go and get a cafe in one of the two cafes that sit on the corner of Ile de la Saint-Louis and face Notre Dame and have a view on a beautiful sunny day. It's just a great thing to do. And it's really nice to do the two islands together, because it really gives you a feel for a major section in terms of time of the history of Paris. You go from really the oldest part up through into basically the Renaissance, which is where you have a lot of very posh buildings that are still everywhere. But this is still, it was started as a posh neighborhood, and it still is. It's famous actors and writers and politicians, that's where they have their houses. So you and I, unfortunately, I don't think we would be able to live there.
Oh, well, maybe someday.
Maybe someday.
And what about the shops there? Are they mostly small boutiques?
Very
like
tiny little boutiques, not No. It's little, there are some little antique stores. There are some stores that have jewelry or hats. There's a hat maker that's on the island. There aren't that many. It's really largely residential. It's very, very small, this little island. But there are a few restaurants too, and they're nice to do window shopping in.
Well, that is it for Join Us in France episode 2. If you found this information valuable, please go to iTunes and leave us a review. If you visited Ile de la Cité and want to share some tips with other listeners, go to joinusinfrance.com, episode 2, and leave a comment. We also welcome your questions and show suggestions in the comments section of the website. Music credit go to Rémi, the musical engineer. Thank you, Rémi. And until next time, I hope your vacation planning is enjoyable with joinusinfrance.com. Bye-bye.